We've got a lot of fiery news from Miami and a lot of juicy news from Orange County, and of course the Valley, because the Valley never stops. And if you're looking for bonus content and specifically recaps of the Valley reunion, OC in Miami, I am doing those over on the Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and Botox. So come join me over there. You can buy an individual episode, one that you're want to listen to. You don't have to subscribe monthly, or you can just subscribe monthly. It is $6 a month, so not bad for 4 extra podcast episodes a month. And they're juicy. They're always at least an hour long, usually more because I talk a lot. So yeah, anyways, enjoy today's episode. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Bravo Papers, a safe space for all us Bravo fans who love to analyze, deconstruct, and talk about our favorite Bravo shows ad nauseum. So join me, Bravo and Botox, and we'll catch up on all the Bravo news and read way too much into our favorite shows and Bravo celebrities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bravo Papers, Bravo Weekly News, here with your host, Emily, to bring you all the gossip, tea, word on the street, news, information, 411, and whatever else you feel like calling it. And, we got quite a bit of Miami news this week. So I'm actually going to start with Miami because they are, as Adriana says in her song, hot and on fire. And there is a lot to talk about because Julia was on Watch What Happens Live, and the whole thing with Gertie is continuing to kind of take on its own life on social media in terms of the drama. What I am going to say is this is going to be a good reunion. Like, I don't have any inside information about it or anything like that. I just know it's going to be a good reunion because there's a lot going on, and these women, they just always bring it. So I want to start with this whole thing with Gertie and the bots. So Gertie has said that, somebody was purchasing bots that were sort of like, you know, coming to her account and, leaving all these comments. Now, I actually did not see this. I didn't clock it. I didn't see it. I didn't see it on any other, like, Bravo pages or anything like that. But the reason that I even know about this is because Gertie actually sent me a DM. And listen, I don't have a relationship with Gertie like in the DMs, or like I don't think she's ever sent me a message before. And of course, I opened my DMs and I had a message from her, which I was like, oh my God, I wonder why, she would be messaging me specifically. Um, and I'm sure she sent it to other Bravo accounts too. I'm sure it wasn't just me, of course. But let me just pull it up here. Okay, so she said, I am dealing with investigation for bots who someone sent my way. I wonder who that could be to try and balance out the playing field. There was like a very short kind of conversation before this, but I'm just going to read what is relevant. And then I said, well, I think it would be bots because I literally haven't seen any tweets that support Julia. And then she replied, exactly. And that's it. Okay. So it wasn't like a big conversation or anything, but I do just want to say that, you know, she sees my account and what I do collecting tweets. So maybe it was a little bit of like, you're kind of in touch with like what everyone's saying. And isn't it weird that I'm all of a sudden getting all these comments that are like anti Gertie, right? So, so then she after that, and again, I don't know who she messaged it about it. I don't know what the nature of the investigation was, etc. But she put a post on her, and you can probably still see it. I think it's still on her Instagram. You have to scroll back a little bit, but she has a post where she scrolls and shows the bots, the alleged bots, etc. So listen, would I be surprised? I don't know who bought these. I think we can all make a guess as to maybe who bought these. Because listen, if you go on Twitter, which obviously I do, if you go on Twitter or Reddit or basically any fucking where else on the internet, pretty much everybody is Team Gertie. Like, and there are people who don't even like Gertie on the show that much, and they're still on her side. Like, they're like, yeah, I'm not a huge Gertie fan, but like, she's right in this situation. So it's not like it's like all stands or something like that. So yeah, it is weird that she would be getting these kind of, you know, anti messages all of a sudden, right? And then, she kind of shows in her post, it's like a reel. She shows that, a lot of these people have no followers or they're not following, or, they just have all the like kind of, you know, all the telltale signs of a bot. So yeah. Anyways, I just wanted to share that on here to kind of show, you know, the bullshit that's going on, because I think that's bullshit and it should be called out. And listen, is this maybe the first time housewives have purchased bots to level the so-called playing field? Absolutely not. I mean, we all remember, what happened with Garcelle on Beverly Hills, but I you know, if you see accounts or comments that seem like, when you're like, wow, I'm like, everyone is like in these comments, like, pro Julia, like, it could, if it seems off, then it could be off, right? And that's it. So speaking of Julia, so Julia was on Watch What Happens Live. Okay. And again, I'm not saying it was Julia that purchased the bots. I don't even, know that these were bots. I don't know who purchased them, anything like that. I'm just telling you, what Gertie posted on her Instagram and what she said. So this is all just like allegedly, word on the street, all that kind of stuff. But Julia was on Watch What Happens Live, and these are things she did say. Okay. So she was asked first and foremost about the surrogacy comment. So if you didn't know, I don't know how you might not, unless you're not a Miami fan and you just kind of listening to this for fun, which hey, thanks for doing so. But Julia's wife, Martina, made a tweet and it basically said, surrogacy is just wrong. Sometimes you just can't have it all. It was like, I think that's almost verbatim was what it was. Okay. I don't have it written down right now. I don't care to repeat it over and over again. But anyways, a offensive, stupid thing to tweet, especially from a woman who's adopting children and is in this and is a gay couple marriage on TV, where a lot of lesbian gay couples, a lot of them will use surrogate, not all of them, but many of them will use surrogacy to get a baby, including Andy Cohen, including ones who are not in a couple like Andy Cohen who want to have kids, right? So Andy, of course, asked her about this, says it was like one of the number one questions for her. And she says that her and Martina share a bed and not a brain, which not the worst answer. I will say that. Because, I have to say, I do know married couples that have different political beliefs. I am going to say, like, I do have a close friend and her husband share quite different political beliefs. Now, it's I understand that in some situations it's almost like not possible. Like, it's hard to believe that you could have like something really extreme, like someone who's like MAGA or like a Trump supporter be with somebody who's like super liberal or whatever. Like, that's unlikely. I'm sure it exists somewhere. But again, like, I don't want to say Canadian politics is not divisive, because it is, but it's not maybe as extreme as what's going on in the US right now. But I do have friends who, like, their partner might be a bit more conservative. Like, I've seen that. Now she says that again, I don't know though if she's just saying that to like appease everyone because she's on this show and she wants to keep being on the show, and she's sitting, 2 feet away from her boss who used surrogacy. So we'll never know. But she says that she believes in surrogacy. But then she says it was kind of, taken out of context. I don't know if it's because, like, she says taken out of content, but I believe she means context. It was not taken out of context. I don't know if that's like because, you know, if that's like a language thing, I don't know, but it wasn't taken out of context. That's all I'm going to say. It was a tweet. That was the start of the tweet. That was the end of the tweet. What I said a few seconds ago. To say it's taken out of context is an insane, stupid, illogical excuse. Okay. But then she says, but I disagree with her comment. Okay, fine. I wonder what else she disagrees with her about. Like, what about her views on like transgender people? And like, I would like to know how far their disagreements go. I'm just curious. Julia says in regards to Gertie that not a day goes by where she doesn't think about the drink throw and she feels sorry about it. She apologizes to her again. Then she says she was very upset about the facelift comment, more because not because Gertie revealed her facelift, but because she mentioned Martina's cancer, which she has no right to do because she told her about the facelift in private. And, again, she's like using all this in a public way. But to be fair, Julia, she wouldn't have brought it up if you hadn't started all of this. Like, if you hadn't, clearly come for her for like the stupidest reason ever and then made it kind of blow up into this bigger thing that it didn't even need to be, then none of that would have happened. I'm just saying. Like, and I'm not trying to be elementary school, like who started it, but you started it. Okay. Um, when asked why Julia expects Russell to be kind to her when Martina was rude to Gertie, Julia says that she was just expecting to have a nice conversation with him. Again, like, was he a little bit cold or dismissive? Yes. I wouldn't classify it as rude, in my opinion. Like, but do I think he was just kept it a little like, as minimal as it needed to be? Yeah, he was a little cold. But I think that was justified, given that splashed water on his wife. So, yeah, anyways. Um, but she said she was just expecting to have a nice conversation and that she didn't think that Martina was rude to Gertie. Okay, so if you didn't think that Martina was rude to Gertie, then you can't think that Russell was rude to you. Because in my opinion, Martina was ruder than Russell was. Just saying. Okay. Now Isaac Mazzari, who is like a big name in the fashion world, he was on as well. And he was next to Julia, and he made a comment about how he loved when Julia splashed the drink on Gertie. And, he's been getting a lot of backlash from Bravo fans because of this comment. And people are like, how can you support, assault and you're like all this kind of stuff. And then Gertie was on the Two T's podcast with Tamara and Teddy, and she addresses him directly in response and says, Mr. Isaac Mazzari, I'm disgusted at your comments. And she says, this is not entertainment. I was degraded on national television. And yeah, I kind of agree with her. Like, listen, these things happen in Housewives. This is not the first time there's been a water splash or whatever. The audience never responds well to it. I'll say that. I think we would rather them just argue with their words and have a verbal spar, and it doesn't need to become physical, nor does there need to be like, a water throw, anything like that, right? So, yeah, so I think to kind of like say it was great, and you could even tell Andy's face when he said it. Andy was like, no, 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 we don't like that. Like you could tell Andy was trying to like walk it back, but no, he was like pretty much like, no, it was great. It was hilarious. Like he was taking it very lightly, which I think was not a good move. Again, I guess that's his opinion, whatever. But yeah. Now, since that episode has aired, Andy has spoken up about the whole like surrogacy thing on his show on Radio Andy, and basically what he says was the comments he says are quote ill-informed and dumb. So, and he says like, listen, anyone who's against it or like saying that it's wrong, that's just ignorant and you're just the person is not informed. They're not informed. And he says that kind of a few times, but he does say ill-informed and dumb. So, I believe that she has deleted that tweet as well. So yeah, but again, not a great move. And again, like you don't have to tweet everything you think all the time. One of my Patreon subscribers made a really I thought, great kind of conspiracy theory about Martina's tweets. And they said, and not saying that Martina doesn't really believe these things, these aren't her real opinions, but that she's just going like extra unhinged with the tweets, or being less edited because she doesn't want Julia on the show, but she doesn't want to be like the reason that Julia quits or something. I was like, that is quite the conspiracy theory, but listen, it could be possible. Maybe Martina doesn't like the show. And, and she's like, well, I don't want my wife to resent me because I made her stop doing it. I don't want to look like I'm not supportive of like she wanted to do this, but here's a way to get her off. You never know. But don't worry, Martina, you didn't even, if that was true, you don't need to because Julia will sabotage herself, clearly. Now, meanwhile, Adriana Demora has also been doing some interviews. And I love when Adriana does interviews because no matter what you think of Adriana, she is a model housewife. She's like kind of delusional. She makes the same bad decisions over and over again. She has a lot of opinions about the way people live their lives. She can be hypocritical. She says what she wants to say. She's also hilarious. Okay. She's so funny in her confessionals. She says, I think, what sometimes a lot of us want them to say, the housewives to say. So, I always enjoy an Adriana interview because you're going to get some tea out of it. You're going to get some kind of like, shocking revelation. So she was in an interview with Decider.com where she actually spilled a little bit of tea about Sheena, of all people. Sheena, of course, is just fucking involved in everyone's lives. But anyways, she says that Sheena actually got in the middle of her brief romance with below deck Captain Jason Chambers. So if you remember the last BravoCon, everybody was like kind of like standing like Lala and Captain Jason and being like, ooh, like get them together. This was like before everyone hated Lala so much. And people were kind of like, you know, oh, they could have like a good, like a hot hookup. Like it was like that kind of thing. And I think Jason mentioned in an interview that he was interested in Lala or whatever. And then we found out later that Adriana had actually hooked up with him. So they met at BravoCon and they ended up like making out at Adriana's apartment in Miami. So that everyone was like, oh, okay. Um, so, she talked about the kiss and said it was pretty soft and sweet and it wasn't aggressive. I had a good feeling about it. However, she speculates that Sheena got in the middle of things by immediately telling Captain Jason a different version of what was said at the taping, which didn't air on Bravo until the following week. So I guess Adriana did an interview talking about it and, what had happened between them. And then Sheena went and told him like, oh, this is what Adriana said, but it wasn't really accurate to what Adriana actually said. So Adriana said, I had a good feeling about it, that being like kind of her, like the once or twice her and Jason hung out. And then she says, I think, quote, I think that girl Sheena got in the middle because I said it at the filming for BravoCon Live. In the van, she was already texting him and spinning it in a different way. By the time it got back to him, it was said in a negative way. But that's not how I meant it. I meant to say, well, we had a good time. So yeah, like what she said in the interview was that like nothing really happened, but they had a good time. And she said, he came to her house a couple times. She cooked for him. They went out dancing and then they shared the kiss as I described before. And then Decider asks if Adriana thinks she might message him and meet up with him in Vegas this year at BravoCon. And she says no, because it got to a negative place and that's it. We had several messages that were very friendly. It's not like he's proposing or anything. It was just two people that work for the same network. We were just talking about life. He was talking about his daughter. I was talking about my son and what it's like to work in the entertainment world. It was a soft and sweet little date. It was very casual. There were no expectations. Okay. All right. Meanwhile, on Watch What Happens Live, Adriana did an interview on there, which was hilarious. I, don't watch every episode of Watch What Happens Live, but I will if there's like somebody I really like on it. But even if I don't, I watch all the noteworthy clips that the Watch What Happens Live Instagram puts out. And this one was hilarious. So Adriana Demora is asked who's the rudest Real Housewife that she's met. And she says Giselle Bryant. Okay. So she had to pick someone from another city other than her own. This was in like, one of those games that they play on Watch What Happens Live. And basically what she says is quote, "We were at BravoCon here in New York and we were sharing a car. Oh, she was so rude. She was giving me sass because I got the front seat. She came in second, so she had to sit in the back. She wasn't happy about that." Okay. Now for some reason, people are, like, shocked by this. Like, I see a lot of people being like, "Ugh, what? Giselle? I'm like, Do people not understand who Giselle is?" Like, Giselle can be hilarious on the show, but if you can't see like, Giselle, great housewife. Again, just like Adriana, she's a great housewife. I don't want her to change, I don't want her off the show. But to sit and think that Giselle isn't kind of like a snooty, kind of mean girl and isn't like one of the cool girls, quote unquote, is crazy because she is. She's exactly that. She's sort of like, one of the leaders on her show. She probably, thinks highly or higher of herself because, Adriana's not a full-time housewife. Miami, like, was off the air for years and they just came back and they're one of the quote smaller shows. Like there is like a little bit of a pecking order that I'm not saying it should exist. I'm saying these women kind of create it. Like you hear this about the Beverly Hills housewives. They because their show has the highest ratings of the housewives shows, they walk around at BravoCon like they're, better than everybody else or whatever. Like they think they're above some of the other shows. And listen, if Giselle was rude to Adriana, I'm not surprised at all. And I'm not surprised that she would have the expectation that she gets the front seat. To me, that's very Giselle. It doesn't speak like not true to Giselle's character. Now, Giselle responded to this, of course. And there was the clip was floating around, and she responded and said, "Harpo, who dis woman?" Okay, so I guess, Giselle again, there it is. She just proved it. She literally just proved what I said. Like, trying to say, like, Adriana's, like, nobody. No one knows who she is. Like, no one's heard of her, whatever. Like, yeah, that's I really think that that is why Giselle expected to have the front seat, even though she wasn't the first to get in the car. Like, she probably thought, Adriana should give it up to her. I really could see that, and I'm glad Adriana didn't. And Adriana's got a strong personality. Like, she's not gonna, like, lay back and take shit like that. So Adriana was also asked on Watch What Happens Live, who out of the group was the least likely to get into Harvard? And she said, whoever didn't finish high school, she said, noting that there may be a couple of housewives from her franchise who never graduated high school. She didn't say any specific name, but she did say that their name starts with a Y, and then people figured out that Julia was actually born Yulia, which starts with a Y. And yeah, so Adriana said, yeah, we can save that for the reunion. So again, like this is why she's funny in interviews because like she'll say things like that and she'll kind of like get things going and it's funny. I don't know. I just find her so funny. Like I can't help it. Um, Now, Real Housewives of Miami is going to be getting an after show. It's going to be starting August 14th, which is Thursday of next week. Now, I'm not going to be like recapping it every week, but I may sometimes, depending on what's going on that week and if I have time. But if I'm not doing that, then what I will do is cover kind of, the main things like tea that was spilled, etc., on the news episode so that you won't miss out on that and you can kind of keep up with what's going on the after show. So if they're getting an after show, they must be doing well. I know everybody's so panicked about the ratings with Miami, but it's only the live ratings, which don't really mean a lot, and they're doing really well in the streaming and all the other things and online chatter and all that stuff, which does matter, just as much as everything else nowadays. So, yeah. Okay, let's go to some Orange County news because that is kind of the show that has the sort of second biggest amount of stuff to talk about. Um, so Katie was on Watch What Happens Live, and she was asked about where her relationship stands with Emily and Gina. And she said, who? And then everyone laughed, and Andy was like, well, I guess that answers that. And then Andy asked her who heard the recording. She maintains that it was only Matt. Now, I will say that Alexis Bellino has responded to this interview clip on her Instagram, and she says on her story, she wrote, setting the record straight. Katie played the voice memo to me. How else would I know about it? I remember the audio crystal clear. I know where we were sitting because I was worried about the table next to us hearing it. Now I'm worried about Katie's relationship with the truth. Like the other housewives, I would have defended Katie against the other housewives to my own detriment until her lie tonight against me. I will never be called a liar. I will take a lie detector test, Katie. Will you? And then she tags her at Katie Janella and she says, let's go now. Okay. Listen, I'm not a fan of Alexis, but I do believe her in this case. I think multiple, like, it just, they were friends. And, I think Katie is lying because I think she wants to not get in as much trouble with Shannon. And I think also because Shannon's kind of reaction to this is so nuclear that she's like, you know, that Katie's trying to like downplay it as much as she can because it's not like I maybe Katie thinks it's the playing it for Alexis that's the part that bothers Shannon the most. But in reality, I think it's actually the recording itself. So I don't think it really matters at this point. And I think it is better to probably just tell the truth. And listen, I'm team Katie, love Katie. Do I think she's lying about this? Yes. Does that make me like not like her? No, it doesn't. I kind of see why she is. I'm not saying it's good to lie because I think you'll end up getting caught in it. So you might as well just tell the truth. That would be my advice to her if I was, giving her advice. Um, okay, what else happened on Watch What Happens Live? So Katie said her and Heather don't have any issues with each other this season, so that's good. Andy says it doesn't seem like the two of you really talk to each other though, and Katie says no, we don't, and then everybody just kind of laughs. So it's like they don't have any maybe concrete issues, but like they're not friends. And I think that's because Katie knows that really Heather is the reason for all of this. Like Heather is, and Gina was just on Watch What Happens Live like yesterday on Thursday. And I saw the clip last night of her confirming that it is Heather who did all the research on Katie's backstories with her custody and being pulled over and the what's it called? The road rage incident, all that kind of stuff was all Heather was Dubrow. Which, and again, I've been shouting this from the rooftops since last season to anyone who will listen. This is what Heather does. Heather's always behind the scenes. And although Tamra is also terrible, Heather and Tamra are in cahoots together. Okay. And the other thing is that Heather knows that Tamra will turn on her at any moment because Tamra is like your partner in crime who's not reliable. They say like there's no honor amongst thieves. Tamra is kind of like the loose cannon of the two of them. So Heather just goes along with Tamra to like just keep her at bay. Like she's like, I don't want like Tamra's gonna turn her venom on someone and I don't want it to be me. So Heather just appeases Tamra. And I think Tamra goes along with Heather as well because Tamra just needs allies because she doesn't have that many of them. And, I think Tamra's happy to help her out with this, and Heather will help her with her narrative of like, I've changed, I'm healing, I'm doing therapy. Because as we see, that's what she's doing. But it's clear that the person who has the biggest issue with Katie from the jump has been Heather. Because Katie went after her for the paparazzi thing. She came on the show. She was new. Heather's like, who the fuck do you think you are? And I think Heather holds grudges, and I think she's never going to get over that. I think that's it. And I think she looks down on her and thinks she's better than her. And how dare you come on my show as a newbie and fucking do this? And now she's got Tamra, Emily, and Gina all doing her dirty work. And I think the reason Gina ratted her out on Watch What Happens Live, if we want to go even more into it last night, is because Gina sees that the audience is, you know, the audience is not like, I think Gina and them probably thought that, oh, once they see that she recorded Shannon, everyone's gonna be like anti Katie. I think that's what they were expecting, which I could see why they would expect that because last season everyone was so like rah rah Shannon, but people are not. People are still loving Katie. So I think now you're seeing a shift with Gina specifically because Gina needs this. Gina needs this income. Okay. If anyone needs this show, it's Gina. Okay. So now Gina's like, okay, so let me give you some tea. And look at, she's throwing Heather under the bus. She's ready to do it. Gina is going to come to this year's reunion. You heard it here first. She's going to come to this year's reunion being all Team Katie. I'm telling you this right now. Okay. You heard it here. I don't know. Maybe you heard it somewhere else. I didn't take it from anywhere else. This is my opinion. Anyways. Okay. Sorry. I got way off topic there. Um, my thesis is that Heather is behind it all. Okay. In an Us Weekly interview, Katie's asked, why the women seem like to be targeting her. And the interviewer says, when it comes to like talking to content creators, a lot of them do this. And Katie answers that she thinks some of the reason is she was so well received the first season, and she thinks that's part of it. She says the ladies were looking for something to come down on her about because of the audience reaction. 100%. They're petty, they're jealous, the list goes on. Okay. Katie then said she was not expecting to be so well received by the audience, but she's kind of overwhelmed and appreciative of it all and all that good stuff. Which again, she deserves it because I think she's making a lot of mistakes as a first-time housewife, but if she didn't make any mistakes, then she'd be really boring to watch. And that's kind of what we want. And sometimes I think that's what like somebody like Heather kind of forgets is like, let us see you in your entirety, flaws and all. And if your flaw is that you like talk to bloggers too much or you do this or you do whatever the case is, let us see it at least. We don't need this like perfect image. That's just boring. Now Katie is also calling out Jennifer Pedranti and Gretchen for a video that they posted that is very inappropriate. I noticed it I saw it when they posted it, okay? And I was like, you got like, and the backlash was swift, okay? It was swift and, people were pissed. Basically, they make this post where the two of them, they're not talking about like anyone in particular. They're just like, we're back and ready to fight other housewives or like something like that. I can't remember what the exact line was. Oh, maybe I have it here. Wait, let me see. So, okay, so they made this video. Sorry, I can't find the line that they said, but they're like, we're back and ready to fight. Like almost like they're, training to like be back on Housewives. I guess it's supposed to be like a joke. And they come out and there's like, a punching bag and they start like beating up the punching bag. But then there's like this very stereotypical like kung fu music in the background. I'm sure it has a specific name, which I don't know, but the music is like that you would have heard in the back of like, a Bruce Lee movie or something like that. Like very stereotypical kind of music. And and Jen is like punching the punching bag but Gretchen is hitting it like, with like open hand kind of like kung fu moves. Like I'm sure they're not real ones because you could tell she doesn't know what she's doing, but they're making like kind of offensive sounds. To be honest, it is mostly Gretchen. No, I'm not saying that because I like Jen. It just is mostly Gretchen. She's like squinting her eyes and like doing the most. But you know what? Let me read Katie's description of it. She says there's a very inappropriate video going around where two girls are pretending to fight, squinting their eyes and making Asian faces to Asian sounds. It's very hurtful and inappropriate. It's 2025, and I think we should read the room. Katie says, I'm the very first Asian American on Orange County. I'm the first Korean adoptee. And so being singled out from the cast, it's all too familiar, the feelings and all that. Now, that's not in regard to the video. That's just in regards to like being targeted, like the part of the interview that I was talking about earlier. But still, this is just like another kind of reminder of that, I think. Now, Gretchen has issued a statement and said the video we made was not directed at Katie and was not meant to be hateful. Once it was addressed to us that it could be taken offensively, we took it down immediately. Okay, now from what I don't know if Jen has said anything. I haven't heard. I've only heard of Gretchen making that apology, but Jen really should as well. But yeah, it's not a good look at all. Okay. Meanwhile, sources say that Shannon Bedore was chastised by executives for unacceptable behavior behind the scenes at Heather Dubrow's birthday, which we all watched because there was a lot of drama at it this year. Um, but we've always heard about Shannon being a menace off camera. Um, you know, this, according to a source, she has aggressive energy to those behind the cameras, which that's not the way you want your energy described by people who work on set. So the source says Shannon had to be told to cool it more than once to take her anger out on the problem or even the cast, not the people just doing their jobs. Production had to step in and have a word with Shannon about the way she can speak to the filming crew sometimes. When emotions get heated, Shannon lets her anger get the best of her and she takes it out on those around her and not necessarily the source of her anger, which in this particular case would be Katie. When she's not angry, Shannon is very kind and caring to production and the crew, but in the moment when things are tense, the claws come out and anyone in her path could be impacted. It's not the first time she's been called out for speaking more aggressively with staffers. It's also not the first show it's come up on. This is obviously referring to Love Hotel, where Joel Kim Booster accused Shannon of treating people on the show, as subhuman and all this stuff, and, doesn't give you license to treat people you work with like they are subhuman, etc. And listen, I think a lot of us defended her because not because we think she didn't do it. In my like people who defended her and were trying to say she didn't do what Joel Kim Booster was accusing her of, that's crazy. Like, Shannon is a disaster. She's a disaster. She's a monster. When she gets mad and when she gets upset, she loses all rationality. We've watched it on camera for like over 10 years. So to think she doesn't do that off camera is like crazy, right? I never for a second thought Joel Kim Booster was lying. I just kind of was like, it's just like, how much do we care? Like, I care. I don't want her to treat anyone poorly, especially those who work behind the scenes. I think that's terrible. But it's also something that I kind of just, I just think that if you're going to have women like Shannon on the show and you're going to have these like Bravo celebrities who are so like, it's part of the reason they're on the show is because a lot of them have personality disorders and issues. You know what I mean? It's like that is going to leak behind the scenes. And, when it does, they need to be spoken to. And if it ever gets like to a level where it's like out of hand or they're like abusive and so or whatever, then yeah, maybe they need to be fired. Like I think there's not like a black and white answer. I think it depends on the situation and the person and the production and all that kind of stuff. But what I will say is I always believe this stuff about Shannon, but I think that's just kind of unfortunately maybe part of the price that people pay for good TV. I feel like a terrible person saying that, but I just don't know how else to spin it. Like it's just I just don't think that she's the only housewife or that this doesn't happen with housewives that they're not like nightmares, that there's quite a few of them that are not nightmares behind the scenes. I think there probably are. So, you know, what are we going to do about it? I think she needs to be spoken to and maybe there need to be some warnings. It almost would be, what would be a good thing would be to like cut pay. Like that should be part of the contract. Like if you are seen to be like if you get an emotional moment and you lose control and you take it out on like the camera or whoever, then, maybe you lose like a percentage of your pay for that episode. Like cuz to me that's the one thing that would actually cause people to get their shit together. Like especially these ones who start to think they're like above things once they're on the show for a long time. And, and I think we give Shannon a little bit of like grace and leeway because, she does make such good TV. And, if we only have like well adjusted, emotionally intelligent people, we'll have no entertainment. Let's just be honest. And we also have seen like she's really bled for this show. So I think some people are like, okay, well, forgive her. But it does need to stop. Like she needs to get it together. Like, she needs to, again, just like they said, take her anger out on the people that she's angry with, not on production and people behind the scenes. It's ridiculous. Those are the people that she should be respectful of at all times, period. Okay. And I hope that didn't sound at all like I'm defending Shannon or excusing her behavior or that or saying she should be able to do that, because I do not think that at all and do not think that that is appropriate behavior in any way. Or that it should be tolerated, because it shouldn't. Okay, let's talk about, what should we talk about next? Let's talk about the Valley. Congratulations out to Sheena Shea, who is a New York Times bestselling author. And My Good Side is number 4 on the combined print and ebook nonfiction. Now, as many fans pointed out, she has a little, I think is it a sword or a knife or something next to it, which does mean that there was bulk sales of it made. You know, usually it's by the author or their team or whatever. Now, a lot of people are like really coming after her about this and kind of making it out like it's like not doesn't mean as much because she did some bulk orders. I just want to say that that's not necessarily true. My sister is a published author, and I will say that you do buy a certain amount of bulk orders of your book, because she'll do things like go to like book fairs and stuff where she is selling her book. Like, she's got like, there's literally at my parents' house, there's like 5 boxes, because my parents will, either like sell them or gift them to people or bring them to like, again, she went to like this like kind of book fair event with like schools, and they were like selling them to like teachers or whatever, like departments and stuff. Like that is part of it, you know? And I do understand from a PR standpoint, like being on the bestseller list as well does actually help you sell even more copies. It's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy in a way. And listen, you could buy a lot of bulk. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get on the bestsellers list as well. Um, I mean, like, look at Lala. Like, she wanted that so bad and couldn't get it. So it doesn't, just buying bulk alone does not mean that. Like, I do think it's a little bit more nuanced than people are making it out to be. Like, people are trying to make it out like she didn't earn it at all. And listen, every fucking Instagram and TikTok I go to, it's people reading or clowning on, Sheena's book. Every podcast about Bravo I listen to, they're talking. So clearly people are buying it. Like, somebody's buying it, okay? Like, I'm not here believing it was only Sheena who bought it, okay? Um, but I listen, Sheena, I no one likes to give Sheena more shit than I do. Sheena's been like, since day one, I was never a Sheena fan. I didn't like her season 1 when the show aired, even though she was like, people were like, oh my God, Stassi and them are so mean to her. I always thought that she brought a lot of that on herself, and that she also was trying to play victim a lot. And that, again, they kind of saw that she was kind of like, I get along better with guys. I'm more of a guy's girl. And I think they were annoyed by that. I always thought that from day one. So fine. Like, I'm not like a Sheena stan by any chance, but I think people need to kind of leave her alone about this. Like, I think she's has been working her ass off promoting the book and stuff, and like, good for her. Give Sheena a win like once in a blue moon, okay? All right. So not that often, but sometimes. Meanwhile, in other news, Simon Curtis, who is a friend of Chef Stu and Janet Caperna, was on a podcast called Don't Let It Stew, and he talks about seeing Danny being touchy with fans. So there you go. Now, the Bravo investigator posted the clip from this podcast on her Instagram. And the reason I wanted to share this with you guys is because there was an interesting reply to it. So there was a reply from the People's Champ 2284, which is a verified account. And they said, I was there and they were with me too. And I didn't see that. And I was talking to Danny. Okay. So the person who said this in the comment, so this person, the people's champ, is actually Ahmad Elayoubi. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. He's actually a retired NFL player who lives in LA. Okay. So yeah, so that's what he says. So again, it's very hard with this stuff with Danny because, do I think Danny is like innocent and, has never been an annoying or aggressive drunk or overly flirty, said in whatever. I think he probably has. But it's it's hard to trust somebody who's close friends with Janet. Are they telling the truth or are they telling like a partial truth? Like maybe he made like some inappropriate comments like, oh, those girls are really fucking hot and look at her jean skirt or like something gross like that, but then they're like taking it and like adding some salt to it to make it sound worse. Like, oh, he's actually touching them. But yeah, so that's what he said. So just wanted to, kind of give you both sides and you can make your decision on who you believe. Meanwhile, we all remember, well, at least a lot of us do, I definitely do, is that there is this Twitter account called Justice for Jax. Okay. So you can find it _justice4 as in the number 4 Jax. And they're making all these fucking annoying AI pictures of Jax, like, being laughed at by fans and taunted. And he's like dressed up like a clown and, whatever, all these stupid pictures that he's like killing like 20 trees every time he makes one. It's so annoying. And everybody has been like, it's definitely Jax running that account, which I still think it is. So he had the alleged people who run the account on his podcast. And they came on the podcast with sunglasses, hats, face masks. So you like from like their nose to their neck and their hoods are up. And they're basically dressed like they're going to like rob a bank or commit a crime or something. They claim that they're running the Justice for Jax account. Okay. Now, do I believe that they are just two friends or some people who know Jax or on his payroll? That is what I believe. Okay. But basically, he has them on, and, basically they're like kissing his ass, the whole interview. I'm sure it's just two random people that he paid or that his publicist paid to have him on. Um, and then it is funny though, because Jax's publicist, Lori, keeps like intervening during the interview. And whenever like one of the Justice for Jax people are like, it's just a TV show, they're like, no, no. She's like, no, 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 we're not making light of the show. And she kind of is like, just making sure that he's still on the like apology tour, so yeah. Anyways, Jax is just, listen, in case you thought he's grown or changed, here he is with fake Instagram people, not Instagram, fake Twitter people dressed in face masks. It's insanity. Okay. Meanwhile, as I talked about last week, Aaron and Michelle broke up. So Michelle, her boyfriend that may or may not have overlapped with her marriage with Jesse, etc., who she seemed pretty excited and smitten by, they broke up. Aaron has made a couple interesting Instagram posts, to say the least. And the first one he posted was, well, I don't know which order they go in, if I'm going to be honest with you. One of them is, today is National Ex-Girlfriend Day. Okay, so he posted that like right after the breakup was announced. And then he posts a shirtless selfie in like the gym locker room and it says, stay strong. And I don't know where this body came from. I just thought he was like this like scrawny tall guy, but he's very, very, very muscular. So I was surprised at that. But yeah, anyways, I guess those are his messages post breakup. Very enlightening, Aaron. Thank you. But the national ex-girlfriend thing is weird. It's weird to post that like the day or the day after you break up with someone, especially someone who's like a public figure. It's a very weird look. It's not even like funny or clever. It's just fucking weird. Okay. Okay, let's go to some Real Housewives of Beverly Hills news because we have an update from the whole Denise Richards, Aaron debacle, which is that Denise Richards, the cops were called to Aaron's house And this is because Denise was there. So let me read you kind of the summary. So basically, TMZ reports that Denise Richards and Aaron's divorce has escalated further, with police being called after Denise showed up at Aaron's Calabasas home, which he shares with his parents and brother, to retrieve their dog. So Denise went to get her dog. Okay. That is basically the gist of it. And then they called the police on her. Um, and then Denise has a restraining order against Aaron, so her presence there violated that order. Now, I was a little confused about that because I thought that she had the restraining order against him. Okay. And by the way, thank you at Bywig Hello Drama for this summary as well. And I'm pretty sure that Bravo Docket commented in the comments on this post that it wouldn't be violating the restraining order because she has it against him. So she actually can, you know, she can come within those amount of feet of him or whatever. Okay, yeah. So I just looked on Instagram. So the Bravo Docket, who, if you don't know, they are lawyers who host a Bravo podcast, and they talk about like a lot of the legalities and clear up stuff like that. And they said, wait, so she has an order against him. She's the one that can enforce it then. He doesn't have one against her. So there's nothing for her to violate. Okay, so that's good to know. So just to continue that, sources say Denise showed up unannounced, banged on the back door, and entered the home after Aaron left to avoid violating the order. Okay, so I guess Aaron left. Once inside. Now, here's my other question before I even keep reading. I thought that this was Denise's home. Like, last that I heard was that this was her property, but she was allowing kind of Aaron's family to live in it and paying for all of them. So now I don't know, like, if maybe Aaron is the name on the property. I don't know why maybe she did that and it was a really stupid move. Or maybe they're co-signed together. Like, it's hard for me to believe that Aaron owns this Calabasas home on his own, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Okay. Once inside, she allegedly screamed at Aaron's parents, told them to leave, and confronted his brother, even reportedly swinging at him and throwing mail. And again, let's all remember that this is the word of Aaron and his family. Aaron, who's, been in the news and in the media for being abusive and probably is looking to fix that reputation and also justify maybe some of his physicality by saying like, well, Denise is physically violent too, so I had to, or whatever, right? We've already seen him trying to do that with the whole like, well, she's mentally ill and she's got an addiction, which, by the way, does not excuse beating up your wife, sir. So anyways, Denise's divorce attorney, Brett Berman, told the Daily Mail in a statement that Miss Richards did not violate a restraining order, only entered the home when Aaron was not there. Also claimed that Richards did so after learning that Aaron had put down one of her other dogs without her knowledge or permission. I mean, this guy is the worst. If that is true, this guy is the worst. And we know that Denise is a big animal lover. So do I believe she would go to get her other dog? Yes, I do. I believe that she would go despite being afraid of him and I believe she would try to go when he's not there. I believe his family is probably as toxic and aggressive as he is. And maybe she did try to slap his brother, maybe because his brother was blocking her way while she's trying to get her dog, because you killed her other dog without telling her, which is really fucked up, like beyond. I can totally see Aaron too, this like crazy abusive guy who's like said like, you can't call the cops on me because I'm gonna, I'll kill you or myself first, like all this stuff that he said. I could totally see him, if she has a sick or disabled dog or what, I could totally see him putting it down as like a means of like control or a way to like get back at her or whatever. Like I could totally see that. Okay. So then there was another statement on so this is from Denise's lawyer on August 3rd, 2025, after confirming that Mr. Fivers was not present in her home. Miss Richards, see, in her home. Yes, it is her home. Him and his fucking family's living there so they can fuck off. Miss Richards entered the home to retrieve her dogs after learning that Mr. Pipers had put down one of her other dogs without her knowledge and permission. Note that he says her home. Yeah, so that was the thing that they kind of added at the bottom. just to kind of, drive the point home. Sorry, it was kind of repetitive of me to read that, but I already started. I couldn't not finish it. Okay. Okay, and speaking of Denise Richards, she is returning to Beverly Hills. Oh, I'm so happy about this. This is like, listen, I hate that she's going through this. I hate that she was ever married to this atrocious monster. I hate that she's dealing with him and his gross, family, all that kind of stuff. That being said, am I happy she's back on camera? Yes. And I hope in some ways it offers her like some form of protection. You know, do I want to hear things from her point of view? Yes, I do. Like, if she wants to be on the show and she wants to talk about it, I think that's her right. Especially, she's probably felt like she's hiding this dark secret all these years. Like, I'm sure there's a sense of like relief and freedom, you know, and we followed her life, and I also think she probably needs the money. I don't from what I know, I don't think she's going to be a full-time housewife, and I think that's good. I think just a friend of role, she can kind of talk about as much or as little as she wants, and just so that we can kind of see her back on camera. So yeah, she was caught filming. Oh shoot, I don't remember with who, but she was caught filming with one of the other housewives in like a cafe, and they're like, it was either a cafe or the bar, and they were drinking, etc. And chit-chatting. So yeah. So we look forward to seeing that scene and hope Denise is okay. Um, Meanwhile, it seems that Sutton's ex, I don't know what you want to call him, assistant, Avi. We all remember Avi because he was on the show for quite some time. He is no longer working for Sutton. She really didn't give us much of a good reason as to why. But yeah, he is on Instagram making sure that he shows his support for Garcelle. So in Garcelle's comments, she posted some pictures and somebody wrote chic. And then Avi replied and said, always. And then he did another comment and said, hot, beautiful, loving, caring, radiant, elegant, trustworthy, true friend. And people are taking that as kind of like, Avi is Team Garcelle. Sutton did her dirty and maybe did him dirty, and that's why he doesn't work for her anymore. And, it's shade. It's definitely shade. Like, he's making himself known, especially the true friend part. Like, Garcelle is a true friend, first of all, but second of all, that's clearly shade towards Sutton. Okay. Meanwhile, Erica Jane is headed to trial. This is over the $25 million that she allegedly spent during her marriage to Tom Girardi that, is said to maybe not belong to her. So basically, the lawsuit claims that Girardi's law firm had used client money to pay personal bills, including over $25 million spent on Jane's company, EJ Global, over a 12-year period. So the firm allegedly paid EJ Global's credit card bills, glam costs, and various other expenses. So we've heard this, right? The suit alleges that the defendants received jewelry and other luxury items purchased using the debitor's funds. So the lawsuit explains the trustee had $25 million in payments made by Tom's law firm for charges made by Erica and her company. And, the expenses consist largely of expenses to promote Erica personally. Moreover, the over $14 million in American Express charges were made by Erica on a card issued to her. The other $11 million or so in vendor payments were made for defendant Erica's benefit only. Okay. So yeah, it's basically like a lawsuit for, the people who never got their money paid back from their settlements, and who say that, yeah, like that money was, although whether Erica knew or not, or whatever the case is, she still spent it. Right. And ignorance is not necessarily an excuse, right? Like if you are given a car by your husband and it's a stolen vehicle, and then the police track it and come to get it, you don't get to keep it just because you didn't know, right? Like it's still a stolen vehicle, right? It's just like if you're speeding, you don't say to the cop, "Oh, well, I didn't know what the it doesn't matter. Like ignorance is not an excuse. So, either way, they're claiming that she spent this money and this was client money because it came through the law firm. So, yeah, we will see what happens. This is not a criminal case. This is a civil case, by the way. Meanwhile, in Real Housewives of Atlanta news, Kenya is also in some financial, you know, hot water, I guess. Basically, the landlord of her Kenya Moore hair care spa alleges that the hair spa has not paid rent since December 2024 and that the total amount due, including fees, is $44,000. Now, Kenya's legal team argues that the landlord owes them approximately $80,000 for improvements she made to the spa, and these were part of their lease agreement. Okay. So I guess the lease agreement basically stipulated that the property could be used for filming Real Housewives of Atlanta. And Kenya claims she invested heavily in renovations to make the space suitable for filming. Okay. So the landlord has initiated eviction proceedings and is seeking a court order for Kenya to pay the $44,000 into a registry within 2 weeks. Now the lease expired in April 2025. So her occupation is considered tenancy at sufferance, meaning she doesn't have a legal right to remain on the property. So not looking great for Kenya, but we will see. We'll see what happens with that. And again, this is why it kind of sucks that she's not going to be on the next season. You know, this could be kind of a storyline. I'm sure not being on Real Housewives of Atlanta did not help her financially. I don't know. It's again like brick and mortar. It's tough. That's all Lindsay was trying to say to Carl. Okay, it's a tough. It's very tough. Okay, even when you have a big name and people know you and you have fans, and I guarantee you that Kenya has way more fans and stands than Carl Radke. Okay, I don't know why this is becoming about Carl, but anyways, meanwhile, Peter Thomas, also known as Patricia, as named by Nene, reports to federal prison to serve his tax sentence. So he was sentenced for basically tax evasion, and he has reported and he has started his sentence. I'm not sure exactly how many days he's got, but we'll add him to the Housewives prison tracker along with Jen Shah. There's, he's not the only one from the Housewives world who's in prison. We got Karen Huger, Jen Shaw. Now we have Peter. We've got a little collection of Bravo Lebs in prison. It's pretty wild. Okay, let's talk about some RHONY news, and not new RHONY, but old RHONY, because Carol Radziwill appeared on Watch What Happens Live with Andy Cohen this week, which is pretty crazy. It was a surprise appearance. Nobody was expecting it. The episode featured Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers, and they were, trying to guess who the mystery housewife was. And Carol came out and everybody was freaking out. And basically, people were very surprised because Carol and Andy have had a feud for years, ever since she left the show. But I do have a feeling that Andy's falling out, or whatever you want to call it, with Bethany and Bethany's whole tirade against Bravo and her whole like reality reckoning. I do have a feeling that that might have something to do with it. It's like, Andy could almost talk to Carol and be like, yeah, you know what? I kind of got fooled by her too. You were right about her. Like, I wonder if there was a little bit of that in the conversation, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was. But yeah, so basically what they said, so Carol told People about People magazine, and what she said was, we both came to understand that our disagreements had everything to do with the high pressure nature of the show and very little to do with our friendship, which preceded it, because apparently they were friends prior to her being on RHONY. Now that could also be her way of saying a lot of our disagreements had everything to do with Bethany. And now that he sees the light, we're friends again. That could be that could be what she's saying. She says, Andy and I are very much on the same page now, and I'm happy about that. Oh, yeah, I bet you're on the same page. And I bet that same page is opinions about someone whose initials are BF. So she appeared on there and everyone was very excited. And Andy on Andy Radio said, she and I, as you know, had a big kind of falling out. She asked me to never speak to her again. And then we kind of went at each other publicly for years. But he noted that they were able to make up after they texted one another and sorted it out. And he said, we really kind of came to a very positive place. And then Carol posted on her Instagram story, Andy, like the clip of Andy talking about this on Andy Radio, and she wrote above it, "True story. We hadn't spoken or even bumped into each other in nearly 7 years. After another public argument, we quietly settled our differences over text messages. Then just 1 week later, we bumped into each other at the Polo Bar. The universe had said enough." Okay. So good for them. Listen, I think that's great. Listen, I'm not like the biggest Carol fan. I never have been. I don't want to get into all my reasons why. They don't have to do with Bethany, by the way, because I'm not a Bethany fan either. But was it like fun to see her on Watch What Happens Live? Yeah. Like, she's kind of she's not an OG, but she's like someone from like the glory years of RHONY. So, she brings back those feelings. And it was fun to kind of get an update from her on Watch What Happens Live. So she said she was recently at an event where she ran into Luann and Ramona. She said it was just like it was used to be. It was like the same vibe from when they would film. She was even like looking around to see if there were cameras. She says there should have been, but there weren't, which was maybe a little bit of a like, can we bring back the original RHONY? She said that she also ran into Ramona on the street as well, she said Ramona was the exact same as she's always been, just like, oh my God, I'm doing great. My life is amazing. I have a boyfriend. And it was just going on and on. She says she's still friends with Dorinda, talks to her here and there, still friends with Hala Heather, who moved out to the Berkshires, but still comes into the city and they see each other. So that is nice. Okay. Sometimes it's nice to have a nice story, isn't it? Where it's not just everybody hates each other. Let's go to a little bit of Real Housewives of New Jersey news, because there was this report floating around which again, I never believe reports from New Jersey about casting because they're never true. They are just never true. So there was one floating around that Melissa and Teresa were ready to quote unquote come to the table and film together despite tumultuous relationship. Melissa commented on this and said fake news. So, as usual, don't listen to those casting rumors when it comes to New Jersey. Until it is announced by Bravo or People magazine, it's not true. Okay? We just need to make peace with that. Also, Teresa and Gia are going to be on that show Special Forces, World's Toughest Test. I've never watched it. It was the one I feel like the first time I heard of it was when Tom Sandoval was on when he was trying to like repair his reputation after Scandoval. So Teresa and Gia did it together, and also Ava from Real Housewives of Atlanta and Brittany from the Valley are all on it. And then they show them like carrying these big, huge backpacks, and I feel like Brittany should be cut some slack because she also has to carry those humongous knockers that Jax forced her into. Ugh, I just want her to get rid of those. Like I would, and not because a woman can't have huge boobs if they want, but because she didn't want that. Jax made her, and it must remind her of him whenever she looks at them. It would piss me off every time. Okay, let's go to some Southern Charm news. Nothing super huge, but it seems that Craig has maybe a new girlfriend. So he was spotted holding hands with model Elizabeth Turner. She, seems like she's modeled for Guess lingerie amongst other companies. And, she's blonde and I don't know, very pretty. The two of them were seen walking down the street holding hands in Charleston, going somewhere, I don't remember where. And, people caught it on their phone. You could tell Craig wanted to be seen with his new girl. Fine, that's his right, whatever. Now, a lot of people are like, I see a lot of comments where people are like, he never, was right for Paige, and oh, like, look at her, she's so whatever. And I'm like, okay, you're being like so like, just because the girl is blonde and she's a model and she's a different look than Paige, like that doesn't mean it doesn't mean that what like Craig, I don't know, never was really attracted or was really into Paige. Like it's so stupid. Like not everybody has a type. Some guys' type is just really hot women. Okay. And that's about it. And I have a feeling that that's Craig. Okay. and he's gonna have a new girlfriend. He's a relationship guy. He always has been. Like, you could tell. There's some guys that just always want to be in a long-term relationship. There's some girls who are like that too. Craig is one of those guys. He's always gonna have a long-term thing or be trying to have a long-term thing. I think that's just his personality. Anyways, so yeah, so he's dating her, and then other people were like, kind of being like, oh, she's good, he's with a real woman, instead of like all the anti-Paige people on the other side. It's like, can we just stop? Like, just they broke up and he's dating someone new. That really is the start and end of it. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about Next Gen NYC, because Gia, Amira, and Brooks were on Watch What Happens Live, and none of them have spoken to Charlie since the show aired, but he did leave the group chat. So I guess they have their show group chat and he left it, which is probably not a good sign. Gia reached out to him, like, to invite him to an event. She said he did respond, but, eventually was like, I'm not going to be able to attend. So, but she said, nothing like comprehensive, like minimal communication. Amira also confirms that the Dolce & Gabbana event that Ava went to was not like such a tough invite to get, basically. So I don't know if that was kind of like, Andy brought it up, okay, just to be fair. But it might have been kind of like a little bit of shade towards that. And then Kim Zolciak was also on Watch What Happens Live. She was actually on with Katie from Real Housewives of Orange County, but I included it under the Next Gen NYC news because it was mostly kind of her talking about like things in relation to Ariana and stuff like that. So basically, Kim says that she did spend Ariana's money on bills. When Andy asked, like, what did you spend all her money that she made when she was a teenager? She says she spent it on bills, but she's paid her back for that. And as for the money she made from working, I guess, like, I don't know what the difference between that money and that money is, but anyways, that she says that Ariana will be paid back. And then Ariana's sitting in the audience, like in the front row, just looking so unimpressed. Like, she's like, I didn't get paid back shit. And you can tell by the look on her face. Then she also confirms that she borrows money from Brianna here and there. And she says it's just for electric bills. Okay. And she says, you know what? The Zolciaks were left with nothing and we have to figure it out. Okay. I think part of the reason that you were left with nothing is because of you, just to clarify. Kim says she has also reunited with her parents after her fallout of her divorce, etc., and her fallout with them. I guess her dad reached out to her divorce lawyer, to kind of check in on her, and it sort of just spiraled from there. And now they are reunited. She says that, he was concerned. She says life is too short. She realizes, how much work goes into like being a parent. It's so funny too, though, because when she just can't help but being Kim Zolciak, because then when she talks about it, she's like, I just realized like how much work it is being a mom, like especially like teaching the hair and makeup. I like taught the hair and makeup like to these girls, and it's just like a lot with teaching hair. Like, she says it like 3 times. I'm like, is that real? That's the hardest part about being a mom, teaching hair and makeup? Like, okay. Anyways. So yeah. Kim is still Kim, as they say. Okay, so I think that is all for today. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Please make sure you rate, review, and subscribe. Subscribing is a great way to make sure you don't miss any episodes, and you are now in the know for everything Bravo. See you next time. Bye. Thanks for listening, everyone. Your support really means everything to me, and this show wouldn't be possible without you, the listeners. So please, if you enjoyed the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For more, you can join my Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and And for $5 a month, you'll get 4 extra podcast episodes a month. You'll also get early releases of Bravo Paper episodes and more. Please also subscribe to my YouTube channel at The Bravo Papers and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at Bravo and Botox, and at The Bravo Papers. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, you can at buymeacoffee.com/Bravo and Botox. Send your love through some much needed caffeine. And any guest that was on today's episode will be in the show notes, all their social media and contact information. So thank you so much, everyone. Keep overanalyzing Bravo.